Hello, Pulse community. Welcome to another episode of the Career Pulse podcast, your vital sign for career and business from everyday go-getters like you. I'm excited to be bringing you the very 5th episode of the podcast, where I'm going to sit down with the one and only Alex Gasparetto and Lucie Gillespie. They are a power filmmaker couple who I think is probably going to be one of the next big things in filmmaking coming out of Michigan in the next few years. I don't want to take away from the bio that I talk about when I first bring them up during our interview. We had a nice chance to talk on a relaxing Sunday at their home, and I couldn't be more fired up to what's on the horizon. Now, for those of you guys that don't know, once again, they are alumni of the Motion Picture Institute. They have completed over 4 short films, including their latest short film, Akoma, which was written by Lucie Gillespie and directed by Alex Gasparetto, which was actually accepted into the Local 4, that's Channel 4, the Local 4 Film Challenge Detroit. And actually this past October, it actually won for Best Award. And the grand prize winner, which was them, they were actually able to win free tickets to the Sundance Film Festival in Lake City, Utah. So they're now not only award-winning filmmakers, but I'm proud to say they're Sundance Film Festival attendees. Couldn't be more proud of them, seeing them, go from, where they were just starting out in school, to where they are now. Really quick, we're just going to dive into a couple of things we talk about in the episode. We talk about things that, we talk about the normal film questions and what's it like being a filmmaker and that sort of stuff. But we really dive into, things like, we talk about morning routines. What do they do well? What are some things they can improve on? We talk about, we dive into some of the origins of Lucie's dark yet sensational storytelling. Where do some of those dark origins, come from? And we also get into, Alex's background, how he first got involved in filmmaking. It's a funny story, just, coming from, a film festival who he volunteered on 3 or 4 years ago and where it led to now. And we get into a little bit of Lucie's nursing background and how that influenced her perspective on filmmaking, and how it really keeps you close to the human condition at all times, how that pretty much helped her become a better filmmaker. And then we finally wrap up just some little things about how, we get into this business, and it's kind of like there's never a point where as a creative you clock out. You're always having ideas going on in your head, and it's all about being accepting of that, but at the same time knowing how to focus and direct it in the right areas. And finally, we talk about as far as looking long term, as far as legacy, creating what you want to create. It really takes time to really find yourself. It's how you grow. And it's about really changing your mentality and know that you're in it for the long haul, because it's all about the long game and a nice little word of what we call consistency. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the 5th episode of the Career Pulse podcast with the one, the only, Alex Gasparetto and Lucie Gillespie. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Career Pulse podcast. My name is Hayward Crawford, your host. And the Career Pulse podcast is your vital sign from everyday go-getters like you, and in career, finance, business, and all sorts of things in between. I'm sitting here with my 5th official guest on the podcast, Alex Gasparetto and Lucie Gillespie. And to give you guys a background on these two, they're actually filmmakers that I met here in Michigan. And first of all, Alex, he has a very critical eye for high-quality visuals. Alex has a certificate in film production from the Motion Picture Institute and a 6-year background in digital media. His thorough knowledge of production are put to work behind the camera to create thought-provoking media in collaboration with a variety of artists, from fellow filmmakers, musicians, dancers, and Formula 2 raceboat drivers. His directorial debut in 2014, a short film entitled Asphyxia, was showcased in a variety of local festivals, including the Trinity International Film Festival in Detroit, where he was presented with the Best New Artist Award in 2015. His films often center around strong female leads, making him a local filmmaker to keep an eye on. Our second guest is Lucie Gillespie. She is also the co-founder of Lunar Flame Pictures. Lucie has a certificate in film production from the Motion Picture Institute
and a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing from the University of Michigan. She is a freelance writer, director. She currently serves as a production manager of Lunar Flame Pictures, LLC, where her organization's skills match her creative vision to coordinate and execute company projects. In 2014, her graduate feature screenplay, The Other Side of the Coin, won the Best Feature Screenplay at the MPI Film Festival that year. She has since co-written the feature script, Sister's Wrath, in pre-production, and the short film, The Girl on the Mat, in post-production at NuWave Films. She's also a theater actor since childhood. This summer, Lucie also marked her film acting debut in the short film Akoma, which is a post-Civil War era piece, period piece, which she also co-wrote. And basically, it is also her goal to be able, through her films, to be able to highlight female characters, giving her a unique voice, as well as for her characters. Alex and Lucie, welcome to the Career Pulse Podcast.
Thanks.
How you doing?
Great. Thank you for having us.
Oh, yeah. And it was long overdue. And as far as kicking it off, what would you say you typically tell people when they first ask you, what do you do?
I always say I'm a part-time nurse and a full-time artist. So I do a little bit of everything from writing to directing to producing to acting. And then you have to try and explain what all of those different jobs entail, which can be a little lengthy.
Alex?
I fortunately am a full-time artist.
Awesome. Full-time's good?
Yes. What we do really at the end of the day, though, as far as video goes, we really love to tell human stories. Humans are just so interesting, and our ability to feel emotions and such just lend to so many things and so much to explore, truly. And it's fun for us to be able to explore those and then translate those into something that can be experienced.
Okay. Yeah, because I think a big part of, once again, filmmaking is translation, interpretation.
Right.
Yes.
Because a lot of people get caught up in a novel and, it ends up becoming a movie. It's like, that's not how I envisioned it. Well, it wasn't your translation. You weren't directing it.
Right.
They trusted this person to do it, Now, tell us both a little bit about maybe your childhoods growing up and how that ended up connecting you with film. Was it early on? Took a while?
For me, it took a while. However, I was raised by an artist. My mom is an opera singer, and she was always a performer, and she taught, vocal lessons at the house and was always directing different choirs. So I had a lot of love for art and performance art from her. But I didn't make a film connection that I wanted to maybe be a filmmaker until I was in my last semester of nursing school. And
good timing.
Yeah, great timing. And it really was, because if I had made the connection any sooner, I probably would have dropped out of nursing school. And nursing has proven to be very valuable in my life. I'm so glad I finished it. But yes, it took me a while to make that connection.
For me, I didn't really make the connection that I wanted to be a filmmaker until about a quarter of the way actually through film school.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had heard about the Motion Picture Institute through our through this technical education center that I went through in high school as like half the day for digital media. And I distinctly remember the MPI packet getting passed around the class and me immediately passing it to the next person. I didn't even flip through it, nothing.
Like here.
And then it wasn't until later that year as a class we participated in a competition for the Blue Water Film Festival to create a poster that would be used to advertise the festival for the year. And it would be on billboards and everything like that. So my junior year of high school, I actually won that competition. So it was really seeing my work everywhere really dragged me to the festival, so I got to see what it was all about, things like that. And that was where I actually saw Doug Schultz's film Nemesis. It premiered there that year, and Doug Schultz is the president of the Motion Picture Institute. So getting to meet all those people, getting to see what it was all about, really kind of it allowed me to see it a little bit differently. And having done a little bit more research, it was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I had taken almost a year off from high school. 4-year university wasn't quite the right choice for me. So it just seemed like a reasonable place to go, an education to get. And no matter what, I had enrolled, and I was like, no matter what, I'm going to get everything that I can out of this experience. And that I did. But in the process, a lot was learned, including being a narrative filmmaker.
Oh yeah, because MPI was definitely a great experience all around. You know, because I attended MPI as well, as you guys obviously know, and to have that 1-year intensive program, that focus, you know, it gave me it gave a lot more perspective to me. Because going to college and going the traditional route and being like, hey, you have to go here and do this. There were just years I was in college, just confused, not knowing what I was gonna do, and you know, even after college, when I was just trying to do YouTube videos and shoot all types of stuff, I just had no direction. So MPI gave me that really big direction as far as learning more and, you know, going to the next level.
Yeah, as far as filmmaking goes, like I said, filmmaking itself I didn't really get into until film school, but making videos and things like that, I really got started just by making like videos of myself drumming to different songs and making drum covers.
You still drum? You still drum now?
I have not in a long time. It has been a couple of years now. I don't even have my drum set anymore. My uncle has it. But that was really where it all kind of started, was being able to make videos and play it back and see my technique and then make adjustments and things like that.
Yeah, tweak and course correct. Okay. So what would you say a day in the life of Alex and Lucie look like from the time you wake up? Do you have a typical, maybe a morning routine, like, hey, I'm going to read 10 minutes of this book, check this out, listen to this YouTube video, or scrambling, going straight to work?
All great ideas.
Yeah.
I wish we did all those.
Well, sometimes we do. But my morning ritual's pretty much been the same since I was a little kid, because it stemmed from what I would do with my mom.
Okay.
But summer break, my mom and I would always wake up together. We like to sleep in, we like to stay up late. And we would drink coffee together for about an hour. We'd either be sitting in her room watching television for an hour, or we'd sit in the living room together and just talk over coffee. So I've always been one that wakes up rather slow in the morning. But it's nice because I usually end up thinking about a lot of things in the morning. What I'm going to do that day, my life, what I've accomplished so far, lessons I've learned, what I want to do in the future. I think about a lot of those things in the morning, so I usually have a lot of reflection time in the morning.
Okay. Alex?
The most consistent thing for me that happens in the morning is not eating breakfast, which needs to change.
I'm guilty there.
I think a lot of the time, like, I wake up and it's like, I overwhelm myself with, like, okay, I need to get all these things done today, so I get right to it as much as I can, and in that process, it becomes, like, early afternoon, and I'm like, oh, I haven't eaten anything yet, and then I start to get super hungry, and it bogs me down, and it just needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
I'm cranky.
No.
Yeah, I still have those mornings where, you know, I make an effort to get up a lot earlier, sort of have a routine, but then sometimes you just sort of fall off the wagon.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I forgot to eat today, you know. So, Lucie, tell us a little bit about your theater roots. You say you did a lot more theater when you were younger.
I did, because of my mom. She was always into theater, and I remember watching her and wanting to do that. So I think my first play was probably when I was six or 7 years old. And it just kind of became a family thing after that. My mom and my brothers and I would do shows together in the summer, and that was my truest passion when I got to high school.
Mm.
I just loved everything about it. So my roots come from the theater. Always trying to get back there. I haven't done anything in the theater in about 3 years because I'm a lot more interested in film acting now, but it definitely shaped who I was going to be as an artist, and I'm very grateful for all that time spent on stages.
Okay. And as far as I know, Alex, you touched a lot about how you first stumbled upon MPI. Lucie, with you, was it sort of like, I need to achieve my dream, let me go out, see what film schools in the area? How did you stumble upon it?
I finished nursing school in 2011, and I knew I was going to do something with film, and I knew I wanted an education, but I'd already done 5 years in a university, so I was not looking to do another...
Schooled out, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't going to do another big 4-year time spent somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at shorter programs. I was looking everywhere. New York, LA, Chicago. I went down to Nashville and back and looked at a school down there.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing was quite right. And a lot of them were extremely expensive.
Aren't they all?
So I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I happened to be at my mom's. And she's never had cable, but she always had, rabbit ears, so she would get a few channels. And,
and that was the day, I remember that.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in her room by myself. I don't know what she was doing, but her television was on, and there was a commercial for a school called the Motion Picture Institute. So I quickly wrote down the number because it was a local school, and I called and spoke to Kurt Mary, and he... explained a little bit about the program and how it was just going to be 1 year, the most intense year of your life. If you really want to do this, it's probably a good route for you. And I enrolled a couple weeks later, and the rest is history. It was the best year of my life.
Touché.
And Alex, you said when you first stumbled upon MPI, it was a Blue Water Film Festival, like 2013?
I think it was 2011 or 2012.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember creating the poster in like 2010, so it could have been 2011, as a junior.
Okay.
So yeah, it was about that time, and little did I know what it was going to amount to.
And did you meet Doug there?
I actually, not personally, but I met a good portion of all of the cast. And my instructor at the time actually personally introduced me to Alan Maldonado, who's an actor who does all kinds of great work in Hollywood now. He was in The Equalizer. He was in what is that other movie?
X. He's an actor.
Yeah, he's an actor. He was in Straight Outta Compton for a minute. He's doing great stuff. So I personally met him there. It was a year that Dave Coulier was there. It was a pretty great year. I did get to meet a lot of people whom I would have definitely not met otherwise. Sid Haig was in Nemesis. He was there. It was a very, very cool experience. And it was cool, especially because looking back, the first feature film I worked on was Doug's The Dark Below. And Lauren Schaefer and David Brown are both in that, and they were both also in Nemesis. So it was cool because David actually found a couple photos of me as I was going through the line of getting signatures from the whole Nemesis cast and everything.
Oh, okay.
It was cool for David to find a photo of me back then, totally oblivious to the fact that I was going to work with him and Lauren in the future. So it was cool how that came full circle.
Awesome. Okay, now, Alex, can you give us some brief details on your MPI thesis film, Asphyxia, that you would go on a couple years later to shoot, and just the experience of working alongside Lucie here, bringing that to life?
It was pretty cool because it was the first time at MPI they were going to do a project, a third semester film project, and normally they wouldn't do one in the third semester, but it was an idea they had to exercise the directors and the writers the directors mostly, for them to take something that they had not written themselves and bring it to life and direct it for the screen. And Lucy and I were working pretty closely by that time, and she was a writer. So I kind of challenged her a little bit to write something in the horror genre, because that's where my roots are.
And I don't like horror films.
Is not a fan. So I had a little challenge for her there, and what ended up coming out of it was this beautifully dark story. By the end of the day, I wouldn't classify it as a horror as much as a thriller, but it definitely is right down in there.
Give us a little insight for the listeners who may not know about the plot of Asphyxia. What's it's about?
Asphyxia is really about a woman in immense turmoil and personal struggle, based on an incident that had happened that the guilt rides very heavily on her. And she's not faced with very many decisions, and she's very closed off. And her fear of water derives from the instance that had happened. And she's actually in this asylum, and she plays hardball and refuses to bathe. And all of the faculty is trying to get her to bathe, but she will not face the water. And it gets to the point where she needs to be waterboarded and things like that in order to overcome her fears. So it is a challenging story, a challenging film to watch, even for me now. But it's very, very dark.
Sounds really dark, but it is beautiful too.
Yeah, Lucy, tell us about how you were able to go to that dark place with this story to write.
I started writing, and I really just was so focused on trying to hit elements that I thought were horror-like, and an isolated human being, the darkness, dark water. Those types of things are always very ominous to me, and about halfway through writing, I realized what I was really writing about, and it was about an incident I had seen as a child with somebody that I loved very deeply. Watching that person go through the darkest time of their life was what I was really writing about. So once I figured that out, the rest of the pieces really just fell into place. I think I wrote the script in about 4 hours once I really figured out what I was supposed to do. I think it took me about 4 hours and a couple tweaks here and there, a couple rewrites. And I had my story that I really wanted to show a spiritual cleanse in a literal and figurative way. And that's what the piece is really about to me, is overcoming a demon.
Yep.
And, I mean, it was, and even like, looking back, even though I haven't watched the film in a while, like, it was still very just sort of jarring just to sort of like, see that experience going on. But it was a shoot from, I remember, because I worked on the shoot as well. And also, it went on to go to the Trinity International Film Festival. How was that experience, the 9th annual one?
The 9th annual was the first one that Lucy and I attended, and it is a beautiful festival. Yes. Marshall Montgomery and her team do an absolutely incredible job with putting that together. It's a lot of fun. We went back again this year for the 10th annual, and it was just as fun as the first year. The films that show there are top notch. A lot of the stories are great. It is cool because we unfortunately don't get to attend to too many festivals, but it was a good reminder for us this year that there are great stories that are being told.
Yes.
It's just only at festivals like Trinity that you get to experience them, because they come from all over the world. So it takes a place like Trinity to experience the stories from people who have something to say outside of Hollywood.
Yep, and showing that, hey, there's acres of diamonds in your very own backyard.
Absolutely.
You know? And it's a video by Earl Nightingale, and he kind of talks about that, sort of a sense of sometimes people run to one greener side of the grass or one pasture to the next. And sometimes, like, once again, right, what you're looking for is right where you're at.
Yes.
You know? And now, Lucie, as far as Ashes goes, that was your MPI thesis film. Yes. Another very intense story that you went on to direct for your MPI film. Can give us a little insight on that, and Alex, feel free to contribute to that experience.
Apparently, I don't write any comedies.
We got to work on that.
We try.
That'll be the next one. We need to switch it up. But we got One Shy of a Pair, which is sort of romantic drama. We're gonna get to that.
Yes,
we'll get to that one.
Ashes is very personal story for me and my family, my childhood, represented in a very literal way. It's not all completely accurate because you have to adjust certain things to make a better story always, but it is really a piece that I wanted to write for my brother and I to help us kind of set fire to the past. And like I said, I like to represent things literally and figuratively. So when I say set fire to the past, I was trying to figure out exactly how I wanted to do that. So I just had an entire trailer burned down by the end of the story. It's about a girl who gets away from her past, and her brother's kind of stuck in it with their abusive father, and they live in a trailer. And every time the sister goes back to the trailer to see the brother, it brings back horrible memories from a painful past with him. And by the end of the film, the trailer burns down, and she and her brother can be free. So that was my thesis film, and the process of actually burning that trailer down almost killed me.
It was a full-time job. I remember just the processing and going through the city and the zoning, and that's taking on that sort of project is among itself like a separate thesis film almost, right?
It really was. It was a long process. I feel like it was 8 months out of my year between when I started communicating like with the fire department and trying to find this trailer, and then finding it and moving it, and then the city didn't want to let us do it, and the township wanted to charge like insane amounts of money to cover insurance, and then I had to talk to the mayor, and it was just it was insane. But at the end of the day, that baby burned.
Persistence.
Ashes was one of the first thesis films to begin principal photography, and one of the last to finish.
Right.
I
remember.
It took everything that we had. One of my most distinct memories of that project was actually cleaning the trailer out and how we actually found the trailer. The trailer was abandoned on a local farmer's property, and we went online and searched who owned the property and things like that because we could just see it from the road. And we learned that the property had been purchased like 2 weeks prior to the current date that we were looking at this website. And we got the contact information and everything else. Well, Lucie and I took a trip out to the farmers, their farm, and we had to actually drive out to the field and pull this farmer off of his tractor in order to ask for permission.
Well,
to get
because
this.
we had called more than once. We had called because they actually ran a company that they had a farmer's company, and they did certain things, but they would never return our call. They would say, "Oh, well, you need to speak to this person." I'd say, "Well, is he here? Is he there right now? Can he speak to me?" "No, he's not here right now. He's out working." And it was the same thing every time. I had different people call to see maybe if they were just avoiding me, but it was the same thing every time. So we actually had to drive there, and this guy still wasn't there. He was out in the field.
But you guys had an address.
But we had an address of where he was. Because that's it. I wasn't leaving. I needed this trailer. I needed something I could shoot in and then burn. I didn't want to try and do 2 trailers.
Right.
And this trailer really was perfect. And I mean, it was just sitting there on this property. And I ended up running into the middle of this field like a crazy person, flagging this farmer down, and he stopped. I think he thought I was like hurt or something, but I pulled him off of his tractor and begged for the trailer, and he was like, well, are you going to film on my property? I said, no, we want to take the trailer away.
All right, we're taking it out of your hands.
And once he understood that, he was like, oh, well, then you can have it. So that was how that came to be.
Oh,
yeah, and I remember cleaning it out because we had to flip it because the ceiling had fallen onto the floor. They were actually, somebody was raising pheasants in the kitchen. So there were stones down.
What's a pheasant?
It's a bird.
Oh.
It's like a game bird.
Really?
Yeah.
So there's a pheasant living in there?
Yeah, there were probably a couple.
Probably many pheasants living in there at one point.
Oh, it was a wreck. There was an air conditioner in the back that had to come out. One of the cabinets were falling from the ceiling. There wasn't a sink. All of which we had to get a sink to put in there. We had to get an oven to stick in this huge opening that had nothing in there. I had to put a car jack on the counter with cinder blocks and jack the cabinet back to the ceiling and nail it up so it didn't look like it was falling down. We got new carpet. We just laid in there. Got all new paneling. We painted the trim. We trimmed all the windows. It was...
Basically had to rebuild the entire trailer.
It was radical.
Just so we could end up burning it down later.
Yep.
But
through hell and high water.
Yep.
Like it ended up working out.
Yeah.
Now tell us a little bit, how'd you guys come up with the cool name of Lunar Flame Pictures, and what does that represent toward your company? You know,
Lunar Flame, it's funny because we wrestled day in and day out over the name of the company that we wanted. And one day I was sitting at MPI just writing down anything and everything. Like, no name was too ridiculous at this point. It was the early stages. And I was trying to incorporate Ashes some way because that was where it was the first thing that we had really worked on all together. And the lunar part of it came into play because I had read this quote about the moon knowing what it means to be human. That it was alone and cratered with imperfections. So taking the inspiration from that quote and our moon and then tying it in with ashes is how we get Lunar Flame.
And there were some beautiful moon-lit skies even over the process of filming Ashes. I remember saying, oh, look at the beautiful moon tonight, things like that, and then the flames obviously came from burning that trailer, but
so a lot of symbolism there.
Yeah, and it really just to me represents the fiery stories that we choose to tell on behalf of other human beings.
Okay, and speaking more on Lunar Flame Pictures, can you give us an update on One Shy of a Pair, which I believe was both of your film. It was your very next project after MPI. It was kind of like a romantic dramedy, you know.
Yeah, it started off. It started off merely just with the question that I had, like, what happens to those socks when they go into the dryer and they don't come back out?
It's always just
What happens there? Something happens. It is a phenomenon that everybody can experience. Everybody can relate to that. So I wanted to make something that was super relatable, possibly lighthearted, and that was kind of where it all started.
Well, it started as what was going to be your thesis film while
Yeah.
we were in school.
It was going. We were going to each make 2 thesis films.
That's a laugh.
That was a laugh.
Wait, total of 4?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That is a
I knew you
laugh.
guys were ambitious, but...
Well,
Jesus.
we ended up
Yeah.
being ambitious in different ways.
Mhm.
What came to be our thesis films
Which is
were
good.
ambitious enough by themselves.
Yes.
Yep.
They were a massive undertaking. So yeah, this project ended up being a right out of MPI project that we decided to co-direct together.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a little brief synopsis for the audience on One Shy of a Pair.
One Shy of a Pair, like Alex said, started from the question of where do the socks go? But it's really about a young man who loses his mother. His mother's passed away, and he is trying to figure out how to live life without her. So one of the very basic tasks that you need to learn how to do is your laundry. And I know my mom, she would still do my laundry if I let her. And she's always done the laundry for my brothers, and I just thought, what on earth would my brother do if my mom wasn't here to do his laundry? So that's really where it came from. And in the process of trying to figure out how to do the laundry, he's also grieving the loss of his mom, and he meets a woman at the laundromat who helps bring him out of his grief.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a sweet movie, but it's still centered around a funeral, which is funny because I was trying to write something, comedic.
Yeah,
but it's
it
still
was
centered
it's
around
so
a funeral.
relatable, though.
Yeah, we really tried to make something that was funny, and there are moments, but the end result is much darker than I anticipated from the get-go. But it is a very fun movie because there are a lot of conflicting emotions to get to that it takes you on as you experience it.
And not only do I lose socks, but I get holes in them.
Yes.
I'm so bad with that too.
Yeah. The socks I don't lose, I'll get holes in them, then I'll lose them. But definitely isn't One Shy still in post-production?
It is.
And,
we have a final locked cut, and we've actually done all of the ADR, which is additional dialogue recording. So we re-recorded a lot of the dialogue between the characters so that it sounded great, because we filmed in a laundromat that we weren't able to close down, so we couldn't be exclusive in there.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
So people were running the machines and coming in there and talking, and that was all fine, but it does make the audio very difficult to work with afterwards. So we just went in, we got all of the actors and re-recorded all of their dialogue, so it's probably our best sounding film to date.
Sounds really clean.
So
do what we had to do. And the two leads, Noah Robbie and
Cara Ruette.
Cara Ruette, yep. All right, and be on the lookout for that. Now, Lucie, can you tell us a little bit, just briefly, about your background as a nurse, and what do you feel what sort of unique perspective you think that background has given you toward filmmaking?
Nursing is not something I enjoy per se, but I definitely think I have figured out why I am a nurse, and I think I'm a nurse because I'm an artist. And nursing keeps me very close to the human condition at all times. And nursing gives you the opportunity to experience people at their worst, at the lowest of low, their deepest fears and their deepest pain, and I get to be there with them, and right in it all the time.
While they're most vulnerable too.
While they're most vulnerable. And I think as an artist, I'm very close to all of that. And it just constantly keeps me in a very open place. So my two worlds really do feed each other in a very beautiful way. So like I said, I am glad I didn't not do nursing, because I figured out how to be useful in it and happy in it. And it definitely does play into my world as an artist, especially as a writer.
Okay. And you did even mention, too, that, I remember I may have sent you a podcast a few months ago, and it was about career capital, and you said something about how it gave you new perspective.
It did give me new perspective. I remember listening to this podcast that Hayward had sent, and the gentleman was talking about how often when people are miserable in their jobs, they just want to quit. Mm-hmm. And I've often thought about that. Like, well, what if I just quit nursing altogether and try something different? But the gentleman talking had said how it really is a flawed perspective, because there's going to be aspects of any job, no matter what it is, that are going to make you miserable at times. It's just the way it is. What if you changed your attitude and tried to, better yourself at your job and be the best you can at it, and just see what kind of good things can happen to you if you stick it out? And I kid you not, I changed my attitude, and within 2 weeks I ended up getting a significant raise at my day job, and it really has been a life-changing thing.
And it's just great because I go through a lot of content myself, and then when we had that conversation, like I went back and listened to it, because my current day job, I go through those things where there's things I don't feel like doing.
Yeah.
How is this helping me advance?
Yes.
And I look at it like even those little things, those small details that nobody's paying attention or nobody's watching, you don't post on Facebook.
Right.
It's just those little things you slowly start to hone that skill, whether it's maybe organizing or doing other little things. And I went back and listened to that, and it even helped me become better at what I was doing, my day job. So I appreciate that you reminded me to look back at that. Now, what is one question you guys feel as filmmakers you can't stand being asked or get tired of hearing? When, newbies maybe come up and ask you something. You can be real.
Well, based off that question, it's not a direct answer to the question, but one of the biggest things that I struggle with in my field, because I don't have a quote-unquote day job or something that even family recognizes as, like, just go to your 9 to 5, do your thing, make your money, come bring it home. I don't do that. And I'm fortunate to not need to do that, because it allows me to put all of my energy into building this company and honing my craft and things like that. But there's a perception that people have that, like, creatives, like, if I'm not working during the day, what am I doing? Am I just sitting around, like, watching movies? Like, is that my research? Like, because that's just fun for other people.
Right.
But the challenging thing about what we do is that there really is never a point that we can just clock out, because our minds are always working.
Always on.
Even if I'm not necessarily doing something super productive in the middle of the day for a small window, it doesn't mean my mind is shutting down to the point where I can relax. Like, the stress levels are always at a constant. So I think that does bother me, and it's not to anybody's fault. It's just something that people who aren't in the industry don't necessarily understand. It's just a mere misunderstanding.
And it's like the outside looking in, you can never understand it, and then if you're the inside looking out, you can't quite explain it.
Right.
Forgot where I heard that, but it sounds like it makes a lot of sense. Now, Lucie, just digging a little deep here. I've seen pictures on Facebook of your like a mission trip you took to South America a few years ago.
To Kenya, actually.
Kenya,
Nairobi,
wow.
Kenya. Yeah.
And could you give us just a little bit of background on that? How that maybe
Sure, yeah.
affected you?
I was in nursing school. At the time, I was just into nursing school, so I'd already done my 2 years of general education and then started the nursing program in my second semester in U of M. Flint was offering 2 different mission trips you could take, medical missions. And I knew I was going to Africa when I was 4 years old. I used to tell my mom that all the time. I'll be in Africa someday, Mom. And this trip presented itself to go to Kenya. And I was right on top of that application process. So that was the spring of 2009. It was a 2-week trip, and it was the best journey of my life. I got off the plane with no jet lag. Like, I was ready to go. I was one of the only ones of the group that suffered 0 jet lag arriving. I had horrible jet lag when I got back home, but
at least the trip was over that point.
I was so ready to be there. It didn't matter. I'd been awake for like 49 hours. The people there are just incredible. They are so generous with everything that they have, particularly
with what little they have.
With what little they have. They're just so generous even with what they are willing to share with you.
It's an aura of gratitude.
Yes. Right? And it very much changed my life. I wanted to stay there. I definitely want to go back. I still have contact with a few people that I met there. Different nurses, doctors, and just people that we had met in the community. Very, very incredible things going on with the people there, particularly in the medical world. They're always trying very hard to learn and to grow and to do better, and it was just a beautiful experience.
Awesome, because I want to travel a lot more, and that's maybe one of my regrets. I haven't been able to get out of Michigan as much as I wanted to, but I just want to get some perspective on trip and travel and how that.
I really think everybody should go outside the U.S. at some point and just see what happens around the world.
Maybe even more so, like, because I've been outside the U.S., but only on, like, I went to the Bahamas, so it was a resort. So not even, like, that doesn't even count. Like, actually into somebody else's
the environment. Yeah.
Well, I remember just one particular story, and I would love to incorporate it in a story someday, somehow, but I was working the pediatric unit for the day, and there was a little girl, and now, first of all, we don't speak the same language, so you had to get very good with, like, just communicating with your eyes. There was a little girl, she had her tonsils out, so not only do we not speak the same language, she couldn't talk at all.
Remember that.
But she was just starting to, like, be able to eat and do those types of things. They would come around and give the kids snacks, and I was sitting with her, we were coloring, and they gave her snack, which was a little pack of 4 little soft cookies. And she opened the cookies, and she grabbed my hand, and she put 2 cookies into my hand first, before she even thought about eating one herself. Whereas it just blew my mind. I went back to the room where we were staying after the day, and I just cried at how just precious that little girl was. And I'm just a stranger sitting there with her coloring.
Selfless to a stranger.
Selfless, just so generous. And I think she was only 7 or 8 years old. So it's just a totally different mentality, and it definitely is still an experience I carry around every day.
Yeah. Like Alex was saying, travel can really give you that good perspective. Now, Alex, tell us about your latest film, Akoma. It's a Civil War era piece that Lucie co-wrote with you. From what I've been seeing, it may be your collaboration's biggest project yet. And tell us about the process, Alex.
Yeah, it definitely was the most ambitious project in certain ways. It was our first attempt at, like, a period piece, and those present their own sets of, it's entirely new set of challenges, making sure everything looks appropriate, the attire, that was, it's ambitious, it's hard to get right, and we did everything that we could with the resources that we had to ensure that we got those details right. Even with, fortunately, one of our producers actually even cold called the Henry Ford and got in touch with Brian Egan there, who's an executive producer over there, and we ended up shooting part of the film at the Henry Ford, and that was a beautiful experience, being able to have access to actually period correct homes that actually were a part of a plantation from the South that was actually moved to Michigan. And without the Henry Ford, there would be no way for us to actually be able to shoot inside a home that actually functioned as a plantation home at one point without going south and bringing the crew with us and everything else.
Right.
So very grateful for that, and having the team, such a close-knit team who are all passionate about the project, was very helpful. Now, the project itself is a journey. It follows two women who are on a quest to find new life, and it is a constant struggle. They're being chased through the woods by these men, and they're on the run for murder. Did I hit it? It usually takes me 2 years after the project to really know what the project is about.
No, that sounded that was a pretty crafted.
That
was a pretty crafted pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, Lucy, anything to add to that?
Well, I guess really, Akoma came from me wanting to act with my best friend Leah Ruff, who had acted for me before. She was in my thesis film. She was in my first semester film at MPI, and we had done stage acting together. But it had been 12 or 13 years since we've done anything together. And when we thought about that, it's like, oh, that needs to change. We need to do something.
It's been too long.
We just wanted to explore really interesting women. And I sat down to write this, and Alex and I wanted to do something simple that we could maybe shoot in one location over a couple of days.
That's how it always starts, right?
With just Leah and I, and
keep it simple.
But we'd make really rich, deep characters, so it would all be worth it.
Never quite that simple.
I sat down to write this thing, and I thought, oh no.
Oh no.
This isn't simple.
Oh no.
Oops. Yeah. But it's what came out, and it was definitely what was supposed to be written.
It's pretty cool because while I was at MPI, I was just spitballing ideas, and because I have a background in horror, like that's where my roots lie, I always try and figure out like how to torture an audience. Like, what is the absolute worst thing that a human can go through? Whether I've experienced it or somebody else has experienced it, and just what experiences can I bring together to make something that would just be like the worst thing somebody can go through. And that was another idea that I had back then, and it snowballed like 15 times into something that wasn't even related to what it was. And then once we had graduated, I had talked to Lucy briefly about this project, and it was somewhat along the lines of things that we had done with a lot of new elements. And her and I went back and forth a couple times, and it turned into this period piece that the story was just massive, and we weren't even going to touch it because it was just such a huge story with so many characters and so many things that we needed an hour and a half to even convey. That just it would not be doable in a short film.
And this is with Asphyxia?
This was just another idea that I had at the time, and we decided to shelf it. We just put it on the bookshelf, and it was funny because of what was happening in our country and society, and how the relevance of like racism and different conflicts that we were having. It was interesting to see the elements of that story that we had shelved come out in the screenplay that inevitably came out of Lucy in her writing. That it was interesting because it was just like, okay, like this is what came out. I guess it is time to start exploring these characters and these experiences. Now Akoma is only a small portion of exploring what the other idea that we have.
Tip of the iceberg.
It really is just the tip of the iceberg. But I am glad that we got to explore some of what it takes to put on a period piece film and how different it is from making a modern day film. I am glad that we have that under our belt so that when the time comes that is right for us to approach the full concept and the darkness of it all, we will be ready.
Yeah, because you guys have just been slowly, steady building that portfolio of just, project.
Yeah.
It's really becoming, with Ashes, Asphyxia, One Shy of a Pair,
It
now
is a
Akoma.
lot. It is a lot more challenging for us to build our portfolio because of the types of stories that we tell and what it takes to put on the production. And Akoma was definitely the best production we've put on to date. It was also the most expensive, but I think that with the help of our assistant director, Chris Eckenweiler, and all of the producers that we had, Shane Carson, Hugh Hayward, John Wisniewski, Susu
Tobaya. We were very blessed. We had the best crew and cast we've ever had.
Yeah, and I think with everybody's help, we were able to stretch the little money that we had to its most. We were able to stretch it as far as it needed to go, and it really worked to our benefit, and it was definitely the most pleasurable set that we've had. We had the biggest crew. Everybody was really happy to be there, which speaks to the story and what it means. And it was really cool for me personally because our director of photography, Rob Skates, is actually an instructor at the Motion Picture Institute. So to learn from him, and then this far out from school, which really isn't that far out, less than 2 years, to be working with him on a project is really quite cool.
It was an honor, truly.
Yeah, to bring it home. Now, Lucie, your other recent screenwriting credits include The Girl on the Mat, Sister's Wrath, The Other Side of the Coin. Can you tell us a little bit about just going through that writing process and passing it on to the director to translate?
Yes.
Those projects?
The Girl on the Mat and Sister's Wrath were projects I co-wrote. I was asked by a fantastic filmmaker and also MPI grad, Robert Joseph Butler, to tackle a couple of really big stories with him. He is so wonderful in that he loves creating very rich female characters. He loves female protagonists. He prides himself on making women the face of his pieces, which I love because that's my bread and butter. And we wrote Sister's Wrath together in the fall of 2015, and that is a feature length, and he is still looking to produce that piece, which I very much hope it gets to hit the screen because it's really good. And Girl on the Mat was a short film project that he did
with Julie Klein, who we've all worked with.
Yeah.
About a girl wrestler, and it was really interesting writing that piece and learning about what women go through in the wrestling world. I learned more about wrestling than I ever thought I would, and he is set to, I think, premiere that piece this November. It's very, very good.
Yeah, I've seen the still photos.
It was exciting just to be asked by another filmmaker,
An award-winning filmmaker.
Right. He has
filmmaker to write with
record,
him, to trust me with his stories. Very, very rewarding experience. And the other side of the coin is my first feature that I ever wrote, which was a feat. It is a feat to write a feature. So I'm still very happy with the way that turned out. I am hoping one day we'll see something come of that, even if it's just a matter of me selling it to another production company.
Okay. Great things on the way. Now, tell us just a little bit briefly, each of you, what are some of your mentors? It could be a loved one you're close with, a celebrity, it could be living or dead. Who are some of your just mentors that pop in your head? You know, that you look up to, role models?
You can go first, because I know you got one right on the tip of your tongue.
Okay. Well, real life mentors, always first and foremost, my mom. Mm-hmm. She is the heartbeat of almost everything that I do. And also, I have a wonderful mentor. He is also the screenwriting instructor at MPI, Richard Rothrock. He has helped shape me as a writer so much. I think he knew I was a writer before I did. I really didn't know what I was going to do once I got to film school. I just knew I wanted to be there, but I didn't know where I would actually fit in or thrive. And all of a sudden, I was a writer. And he just helped pull that out of me in a way I don't think I could have done on my own. He really helped me find my voice, and he's still such a huge part of my life. Whenever I write anything, I want to send it to him right away. He's just a wonderful, wonderful man in my life. I'm very grateful to have met him.
For me, I mean, I really am fortunate to have not a lot, but a couple of really good close friends who we're always pushing each other to better ourselves, like yourself, Hayward. A lot of photography friends as well, because I do photography as well. We're always we're always trying to elevate each other, and I think that's really where I get the majority of like kind of what you're asking. And I think the biggest one is Lucie herself, always providing and enabling me to do good things. Not bad things. She's not an enabler, but in a good way.
Right. Good enabler.
In a good way.
Gotcha.
But I am very fortunate to have the people, the quality of people around me on a regular basis, supporting what I do and what we do as a company, and what we want to say. And as time goes on, I'm learning that more and more people are catching on to what it is that we're trying to do, and it's starting to make sense to people, family members you may not expect, or just friends who are seeing now that we've put in a couple of years worth of work and a few bodies of work that like this is, that we're serious about this.
Yeah, you're 10,000 hours.
People are. It's not something like, oh, it's just a phase. They'll live it out, whatever. But no, this is something that we want to do, and I think that people are catching on to that and now want to be a part of that, and it makes me very happy to have the support that we do.
Yeah, you just gotta prove them wrong with time, and
That's
just
right.
Yep. Now, speaking of, you mentioned just doing these everyday things. What do you do to grow on a daily basis?
You know, the past year and a half, 2 years, I have never been so self-aware. And I think as Lucie and I discuss our experiences, maybe people that we meet, we talk about just the people that we meet and what they may be going through, and we kind of sometimes make up our own little backstory, whether it's true or not. And just in the process of that, learning why people do the things that they do, what ultimately, like maybe there's a character trait that somebody has that we don't necessarily agree with, but why is it that they're like that? There's a reason, and it's not necessarily their fault, but there's always a reason to that. And I think just talking about those things and being open to the possibility that there's always something, an underlying thing that is happening within somebody, I've really been able to analyze myself and maybe some of the judgments that I make or things like that, and really just check myself whenever possible to make sure that I am constantly not reacting based off of impulse or anything like that. So it is very, it's sickly entertaining almost to analyze these things, but at the end of the day, it's very important for us to do so in order to help develop the most thorough and dynamic characters in this field that we're going through.
I think in terms of growing as artists, it sounds so simple, but we're always studying artists that we admire, that we think do what they do exceedingly well, and trying to figure out why do they do it so well? What do they do to achieve the products that they achieve? And really learning, analyzing the greats. It sounds so simple, but it is something that we do every day.
Okay. Now, this next question, it can be sometimes a sensitive subject, and I know I feel like a lot of people may go through this. I still go through this like anyone from time to time. Do you ever find yourself struggling, maybe comparing yourself to other people's success, or who at another level you're not at yet? Maybe they're 20 years ahead of you just because they're 20 years older, but sometimes we struggle with that, no matter what field or craft.
I think anybody anywhere is susceptible to that feeling. And I think it is challenging, especially for me because of my age. But as many say, and Lucie will say, that I'm an old soul, so I always find myself comparing myself to people of that have a few years on me.
Right.
And it is tough because that's where I want to be, but I'm also 6 or 7 years behind that. And it definitely, being that type of person, it definitely does hit me from time to time.
Yeah, we all do it. I think I'm a little more patient with myself just because I know how many years I invested into becoming a nurse and becoming somewhat okay with the job that I have in that field and finding my niche there. You put in the time, that's 10 years. So I can't come, 1 year out of nursing or film school and think, oh, I'm going to just be, I'm going to be Scorsese now.
Right.
I mean, that's just not how it works. It takes time to really find your voice and figure out who you are as an artist and what you're going to do with it, and learn your lessons and make big mistakes, make flops, make movies that just don't work. That's how you grow. So changing your mentality and figuring out you're going to be in it for the long haul. It really does help.
That's where success is rooted, is by consistency and the duration of it. I think the whole, because of where the world is now and the digital age and everything like that, it is very easy for somebody to become known worldwide in very little time. Whether it be for something good or something bad, the overnight success is it's something that people always want, but it's really almost never true. It is almost never the case. The overnight success, it's like, it may happen because yesterday you didn't know about said person, but tomorrow you do. But it doesn't mean that the past 10 years they haven't been investing to that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there may be those rare cases where, someone did happen to get cast in that film or get put on to where they stumble into the success, but at the same time they may have not put in the 5 or 10 years to sustain that mental toughness, sustain that level of craftsmanship, and then they may not be able to even handle it. They may not be able to even subset to it, so to speak. And what would you say maybe some setbacks or failures you may have had, and how did you overcome those? and whether it was just maybe a setback or disappointment, and how did you take that and make yourself stronger, because of it.
She's pointing the finger at me to go.
No, if
she's thinking,
if it applies, I mean, it's
there's I mean, especially with filmmaking, because we are so early in our careers, and I think there's something to be learned from everything that you do, no matter what. It's just important to be reflective of that and say, at the end of a project, say, okay, what worked, what didn't, and then apply that the next time. And I think Akoma is actually a great example of that. Akoma enabled me to actually get really into the roots of the characters and what their motivations were, more so than ever before. And that was something that it may not have worked previously. Even with Asphyxia, I didn't know the real life story about what motivated that whole story to come from Lucie until after the film was finished. And I had no idea that that's what had happened. So it's...
So there you go.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But I think for me, one of my biggest heartbreaks to date as an artist was my thesis film, Ashes, because it took like blood, sweat, and tears, literally, to get that accomplished.
I donated blood and sweat.
Yes, and I donated plenty of tears. But at the end of the day, the final product was not exactly what I envisioned. And it really broke my heart. I felt like I failed as a director. I just didn't get what we needed to get to make sure the soul of that piece really soared. And that's a really hard lesson to learn. I'm still analyzing exactly why or what happened there. And I think sometimes things read differently on a script than what you get on screen.
Absolutely.
So it's learning to figure out how to ensure you're going to get what you read. What is the heartbeat of the pages, and how are you going to convey that? It's not as simple as you write
1,
it,
2,
you get the
3.
camera,
It's
and
not
you
as
shoot.
simple as
Exactly.
lights, camera, action.
That's right.
Despite the rumors.
I do find myself a lot of the time in post-production moving around flashbacks. Like, when do the flashbacks actually need to happen? And for both Asphyxia and Akoma, none of the flashbacks, for the most part, are in where they were written, based on like the beats and everything. So that's one of the things that is ever changing. It is always a matter of learning. But I think one of my things was with Ashes too. It was really the first big thing that I shot as a director of photography, and I put in hours and hours. Lucie too. We both put in so much time into developing a shot list, and it was very specific, and we had this vision down, so we thought. And at the end of the day, we overshot it, incredibly overshot it. And a lot of the stuff, it wasn't exactly what we needed. And having that thorough shot list didn't actually help us at the end of the day. I think there have been projects since then where I've revised the way I do my shot lists so that it isn't overly specific, so that, because when you get on set, things are going to happen.
You have to be flexible.
And it's a matter of...
Gotta adapt quickly.
It's a matter of preparing myself to be open for that to change. And Akoma was a great example of that for me, just in the way that I prepared in my director's notebook. It was definitely the most streamlined workflow to date that I've had for myself.
Okay. Now, now we're about to get into the fun lightning round real quick. We're going to go at a very high speed. Okay. The whole interview's been very fun, but this is about to be like intense lightning. Okay. Lucy, iPhone or Android?
Android.
Alex?
iPhone all day.
Why?
Because all of my other toys that I have an Apple TV, I have a MacBook Pro. It all works so well together. I love being able to reply to a text message from my computer.
Okay. Lucy? Why the...
I just think the iPhone is too many clicks to do one thing. It just doesn't really work for me.
Okay. So Team Android then?
Yep.
All right. Favorite book, fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction, East of Eden by John Steinbeck.
Okay. Alex?
Well, the last book that I read was The Heroin Diaries by Nikki Sixx. So
interesting.
it's been a while, but it is a great illustration of the darkness that I tend to thrive in, I guess.
Okay. All right.
And it is nonfiction.
Okay, nonfiction. All right, just checking. All right. Now, what is Lucy? What is a random item you have sitting at home you should have thrown away a long time ago but still have?
Oh, it's probably like a really old pair of socks or something. Like I have a hard time letting go of
Oh, jeez.
of older clothes just because maybe my mom got them for me or something. It's just a weird thing. They're comforting.
Okay. And Alex?
I have a massive stack of ultraviolet copies of movies for codes because I redeem them. I watch them on my Apple TV, but through my old work, I still get the copies of these movies, and they're free movies. So I tend to grab a couple of them for family members and never end up distributing them to them. So I have a stack of ultraviolet copies that are just sitting.
Me, myself, I have a lot of junk I need to just get rid of, but I know as far as what comes to mind is a little appropriate for this interview. I still have movie stubs.
Oh, me too.
I keep a collection.
Yeah.
I even have this table at home where, it has like the glass. I can actually stick them inside the glass.
Yeah.
So I have them going back to like the late 90s, maybe like 99 or 2000. I just started collecting stubs. So
I have a book, actually, and it goes back to 2005 because it was my first concert.
Oh, yeah, I keep the concert tickets too.
So it's concert and movie tickets all in there.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
It's starting to add up,
Yep.
Now, Lucy, name a favorite film of yours you're convinced that no one has ever seen or heard of.
My favorite film, I don't think most people have seen or heard of. It's called A Patch of Blue with Sidney Poitier, Elizabeth Hartman, and Shelley Winters. It's from 1969.
Patch of Blue.
Patch of Blue.
Alex?
One of my favorite comedies, actually, is called Brain Donors. It has John Turturro in it and Bob Nelson. It is a great film, and I still watch to this day and catch like little jokes or little quick-witted
great slapstick
lines.
comedy.
It is one of the best slapsticks, and I still watch it and pick up on stuff that I've never even heard before. And it was actually, the funny story behind it is I had first watched it with my dad, and it was apparently my dad and my mom's first date night movie, and they were the only two in the theater. So I definitely know that nobody has seen it.
Wow, because they even remember, like, we were the only ones in there. Yeah. Now, name a favorite film of yours that by the majority was, well, I think, Alex, you may have already said it was very poorly received. So that may be your pick right there. Is there a movie that you're just convinced, like, oh, this is one of my favorites, but everybody seemed to hate it? I don't know.
My mom says I love flops, and I think I must, because even in the last couple of years, I've loved films that haven't done very well. Burnt, with Bradley Cooper, and it came out last winter. I absolutely loved it. It did horrible at the box office. Got terrible reviews.
Burnt.
I just watched By the Sea, that Angelina Jolie wrote and directed last year. It was horribly received, and I absolutely loved it. And I read a review where this gentleman went so far as to say that movie should have never even been allowed to be made. That's how much he hated it, and I adored it.
For me, I'm sort of with Alex. There's a lot of sort of 90s, early 2000 horror movies that I liked. Like, I liked The Faculty, Robert Rodriguez. That was probably one of my favorite Rodriguez movies. That was a good one. Thriller. House on Haunted Hill, Deep Blue Sea. Yeah. People just... you grow up and then, like, oh, that movie was horrible. Like, oh, that movie was
I love that movie. Yeah.
There was a movie with
Cry Wolf. Even that's a little.
Oh yeah, I heard it.
Diamond in the rough.
Yeah, I remember that one. And even a movie called Identity with Ray Liotta, John Cusack about the killer in the hotel.
Yes, I
had a really
remember
great
that
twist.
one.
People, movies like
That was a
nobody.
good movie.
That is like the thriller era, and I love those movies. They're so. A lot of times they're predictable, but they're always fun.
Yeah.
They're always fun for me to watch.
Yeah, it's just a good. Turn your mind off for 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, and I think that thriller genre, it's not necessarily an exhausting genre, like say a heavy drama, where you watch the movie and you're tired. You're just like, oh, that movie exhausted me because you really experienced the film. Thriller. It is like that, but it's not as exhausting. It's enough for you to get invested and forget everything else that's happening. It is a nice little getaway, but it also is like an experience.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think we're all in agreement there. I mean, they may hate them, but we love them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, dogs, cats, or neither?
Cats.
Cats? Have you guys looked into investing in a cat?
I've been looking to get a cat since I moved out on my own 10 years ago, and I just never seem to do it, just because we're just not here very much.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me. I like cats.
They need their affection.
I like cats. They're more independent than dogs. I love small dogs too, though. But they are needy, and as much as I feel like I would love to be able to be here, we're not here all the time, so it's really just not the pet for us at this point.
Okay. Now, what is one thing you both feel you're always looking to improve upon or feel you could do better? It could be more than one thing or half a thing.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
As much as I hate to admit it, I'm a huge procrastinator. I tend to put things off to the last minute.
Me too.
We're all human.
And being creative people aren't very organized a lot of the time, so there's literally paperwork everywhere. There's business paperwork, tax information over here. There's maybe a napkin where I wrote down some ideas for a script on, and it's just stuff everywhere. I would love to be a lot more organized and on top of things. And then maybe just not so hard on myself. I'm always looking to maybe give myself a break.
Yeah, I struggle with that too.
Good at that.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
I feel guilty just sort of relaxing, or
me too.
I'm trying to get better at being more present where I'm at. So instead of being at work in my day job, when like, I just need to be off. I just need to have time to create and do stuff. And then when I'm off, I'm thinking about work. Like, I'm being lazy right now. I need to be doing something.
Should be doing something every minute.
Yeah, I need to. You need to know when you're here. You're here. Just be present. Yes. And as long as you have things written down, you have a general schedule of what's going on.
Right.
If it's set in stone to do something, then this time is for you.
Yeah, I think for me, all of those things apply. And I think the number one thing at this point is to just be more efficient in what I do. Not let things drag on for too long, because if I have a job and it drags, it's going to overlap with another job, and now I'm going to have two jobs on my plate rather than just getting the one out of the way, and now I have another one that I can designate full focus to. That's the biggest thing, is just working on efficiency.
Oh yeah, productivity as well.
Yes.
Now tell us about any, or maybe your most memorable outlandish moments, crazy stories from set.
Okay, I'll start with this. So first, it is a popular story for those who endured this film. The first feature film I worked on was Doug Schultz's The Dark Below.
Oh yeah.
And we were working outside in the dead of winter, -17 or -20 degrees outside. I remember going in for lunch, and by the time we came back out, there was frost on all of the light stands that were about like 3/4 to an inch long that had just formed on all of the light stands. And it was something to see, because I had never actually seen anything quite like it. It was almost like all of the light stands had grown like a Godzilla spine, is really what it looked like. Wow. It was silly.
Yeah.
I think most memorable moments for me just on my own sets, were working with my goddaughter when she was only 5 months old. And it's always scary working with children, let alone babies, because you never know what they're going to do.
Right.
And this child, I remember having everything set up and just, to bring her in for her little scene that she was in. She would be like fussing before the camera was up, and as soon as the camera was on this child, she was just in it, just focused. A 6-month-old. So that's always been
wardrobe.
A really great memory for me. And on a different set that I was so blessed to intern on, I remember being 10 feet away from William H. Macy, watching him do his prep for a scene. It was truly incredible. Wonderful experience to watch him work.
Dial a prayer. Yeah. So what's next for you? You guys just looking, where do you see yourselves in Lunar Flames maybe 3 years out, 5 years out? What's the long-term vision?
As of right now, Lunar Flame is like a film and video production company. So we do weddings, wedding videos, commercials, things like that, music videos. But ultimately, we really want to be just a narrative film production company.
Yeah.
And be able to sustain ourselves making narrative films and telling stories, not doing the wedding thing, not doing
the corporate video,
the corporate video events, things like that. That's really the goals for us at this point.
Working with other filmmakers and storytellers and telling other people's stories, not just our own.
Right.
Is a big goal for us, and it would be a beautiful place to be eventually.
Tell me a little bit, as we wrap up, tell me a little bit about what you think legacy means to you. Start with you, Lucie.
Legacy for me, I think, would be to leave behind stories that are going to last longer than I do. To have characters and stories that have affected other people's lives in a positive way, maybe helped them get through something really painful or discover something new about themselves that changes the way they're going to do things.
Or sometimes even just to make them know that they're not alone, they're not the only person experiencing something. Because a lot of the times too, some of these dark emotions that we feel as humans, we do isolate ourselves and we feel very alone. And we even develop a little bit of self-pity, but a lot of traumatic things happen to a lot of people, so not everybody is alone.
Okay, yeah, and I like to think of legacy as just, what are we going to leave behind, what footprint, blueprint, whether, Lunar Flame Pictures or Crawford, Gasparetto, Gillespie becomes a household name.
Right.
I just think a big part of that is just us being conscious and in the moment of that.
Yes.
And everything from every Facebook post to what we may say to a person, we may be gone tomorrow,
Absolutely.
But I just when I think about legacy, I just think of like, what am I leaving behind as far as inspiring and just, creating something.
Exactly.
Now, as we wrap up with Alex and Lucie, can you tell us, you tell the listeners out there, future listeners, any other info on any maybe events, updates coming up with the project? I know with Akoma, we wrapped, principal photography about a month ago. Just not sure about when exactly this podcast is going to drop, but I know we have an Indiegogo campaign going on. Can you tell us a little bit about that, your website, anything Lunar Flame related,
Yes.
Let the audience know.
So as far as Akoma goes, we do still have an Indiegogo page up, I think for another 2 weeks, to try and cover some of the expenses. It costs a lot of money to make a film. And then it costs a lot of money to put the film out there into the world festivals. There's always big submission fees attached, and even if you don't get into the festival, you still have to pay the fees. So we're really hoping to get a little bit of support in that front with the page. So check out Indiegogo, Akoma page.
Okay. And can you give us like maybe the main website link? So even if, people listen to this maybe after the campaign ended, where's like a website they can go to?
Well, if you go to www.lunarflame.pictures, that's pretty much the hub of everything that we do.
Awesome.
A lot of the updates go there first, things like that.
So you get a link to the Indiegogo there. You get some behind-the-scenes footage for all of our films and other projects we've worked on. You'll get a little bit of everything there.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up our interview for the Career Pulse podcast with Alex Gasparetto and Lucie Gillespie of Lunar Flame Pictures. Definitely doing some big things. Looking forward to more times ahead. And this is Hayward Crawford, and I'm out.
Bye.
Adios.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
All right, Career Pulse podcast community. There you have it. Electrifying interview with Alex Gasparetto and Lucie Gillespie. Once again, very talented filmmakers. Just got done working on their 4th short film, including Akoma, which, as you know, went to the Local 4 Film Challenge Detroit and actually won for Best Film. And from there, they actually won a pair of tickets to Sundance. So they actually went over to Lake City, Utah for the official Sundance Film Festival in January. And it was a complete blast. And I had a good chance to work with Alex on set again recently. And they're just going to keep the momentum going. They have a lot of good projects in the pipeline. So just awesome talking with them and seeing what everything they have going on the horizon. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Career Pulse podcast, your vital sign for career and business from everyday go-getters like you. And I'll catch you next time. Peace.